I'm Dr. Mark Hatala, and I want to welcome you to my office. I'm a cognitive scientist who studies time travel by replicating days from the past. And so everything that someone who was alive on a particular date, in this case December 7th, 1972, would have experienced, from early morning newspapers to late night television and everything in between. What we're going to talk about today are the Newsweeklies from that week. So Time and Newsweek. And so they were both published on December 4th, and so they would have been current for that time. We can start with Time. On the cover is Liv Ullmann, and she's an actress, and she became famous by starring in Ingmar Bergman films, who's a Swedish director. If you haven't seen any of his films, neither have I. And so we have that in common. There's two articles that I want to talk about that I thought were interesting in this issue. One is called A Hard Ruling for Software. And I'll give you a little bit of background on it. So there were two engineers at AT&T, and they wanted to patent a computer program. And they actually spell out in Time what a computer program is. They don't use air quotes, they use regular quotes. But they describe it as a series of mathematical calculations. So it went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled 6-0 with 3 justices abstaining. I'm not sure why. Maybe they didn't know what a computer program was. But they decided that it couldn't be patented because what a computer program was essentially a series of mathematical calculations or mental steps. And that could not be patented. So how times have changed. The second article is called The Bennington Couple, and it's about Gail and Tom Parker, who basically became president and vice president of Bennington College. Now, Bennington College is a liberal arts college in Vermont. It's still around. It's described as being small at 595 students. It's about 750 students today. And it's also described as being expensive because yearly tuition there in 1972 is $5,095. Now, if you adjust for inflation, that comes out to be about $32,000, which is still expensive but seems reasonable. The actual tuition at Bennington College for this year is $75,950 a year, which strikes me as obscene. As a college professor, I can't imagine what you're getting for that money because that's a ridiculous amount. So Gail Parker was hired as president at 29 years old, which is very young. A lot of professors aren't hired at 29 years old, and so to be a college president, that's incredibly young. And her husband, Tom Parker, luckily he was coming from Harvard. If he had been coming from the military, then he might have been Colonel Tom Parker, which was Elvis's manager. But he was coming from Harvard, where he was the assistant to the education dean. So he wasn't the assistant education dean, he was the assistant to the education dean, if you're a fan of The Office. And so their mission was to essentially reform the school. Spoiler alert, they were fired in 1976 after a vote of no confidence from the faculty. But it's still a very interesting article about the couple. We can talk next about Newsweek. And so the cover is painted by LeRoy Neiman, who is something of a controversial artist. So he did a lot of work for Playboy, and he created the Femlin, if you've ever heard of that before. It's like a female gremlin for them. But just to look at his painting, critics would say that he used these just horrible color schemes, that it's vulgar, actually is the word that they used. He also was criticized for making bad paintings, lowbrow paintings for people who know nothing about art. One of my favorite criticisms of him is an art critic said that his paintings looked like those that hang in hotel rooms. And Neiman was a good sport about this. He said, "What's wrong with paintings in hotel rooms?" One last example of this, if you've ever seen the movie Top Secret, it's got a young Val Kilmer in it. And the bad guys are trying to torture him to get information. And at one point, one of the guys says, should I bring out the LeRoy Neiman paintings? And the other bad guy says, you better not, because we don't want to violate the Geneva Convention. So LeRoy Neiman gets a lot of shade thrown at him. Two articles that I thought were really interesting in this issue. One is about the stock market. Actually, there's two articles about the stock market, but I want to talk about one of them. Now, the Dow Jones Industrial Average had just crossed 1,000. And so Dow 1000 the previous month on November 14th. So that was quite a milestone. And so the article discusses things that we still talk about today, such as what should the components of the Dow be, what companies should be in the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and what companies should be in the S&P 500. If you look at it 10 years later, where the Dow was, here's another spoiler alert. So in December 1982, the Dow was at 1,000. And so it didn't go anywhere for a decade. I think in our time, we're used to stock averages going way up or way down, but it stayed pretty static for the entire 1970s. And if you take inflation into account, a lot of people lost a lot of money in the stock market. So that's an interesting article to read. The other one is about Loretta Lynn, the First Lady of Country Music. And it's essentially tells about her history and her family, her relationship with her husband Mooney. And this was portrayed also in the 1980 film Coal Miner's Daughter, starring Sissy Spacek. I think she won the Academy Award for Best Actress. I think it won Best Picture too, which is outstanding. I love her music, and so I'll put links to all of these articles below. But come visit us at timetravelsimplified.com and buy my book. So if you want to travel through time, Final Apollo mission, December 7th, 1972. There's no risk. Our motto is, it's time travel or it's free. And so if you feel that it's not a time travel experience, then I will happily refund your money for the book. Please like and subscribe. If you would like to support my research, I put a link below to my Patreon account. And otherwise, have a great day.